Hello everybody and welcome back to Gaming on Caffeine. My name is Isaac and we are back for episode 28 of FTB Infinity Evolved Skyblock. Last episode we were working on crafting up the runic matrix from Thorncraft, and the only item that we were missing from this setup here was the full mana pool worth of mana required to infuse all of these items together in the runic altar. And so what I have done since the end of last episode is continually thrown coal at these end of flames, and we now have a full mana pool worth of mana ready to infuse all of these items together and get us the runic matrix. I also crafted up all of the other items that we needed, the attuned stone and the 4 blood runes. We've made all of those items before, and now we're going to actually go ahead and craft this thing. But before we do, I want to look a little bit at mana lenses, because if we look over here back in the guidebook, at the very bottom here, it says you may want to consider some potency lenses or additional mana pools and spreaders as this process takes a while. And so I decided to start looking into mana lenses because I've actually never used any of the lenses before from Britannia. And so what I did is I made myself a Lexicon Britannia here, which for those who are unfamiliar is the guidebook from Britannia. You can craft it very easily by just crafting up a book, a sapling, and then 2 golden nuggets. Really simple stuff. And I started looking here, and there are a bunch of different mana lenses that you can apply to a mana spreader to increase its functionality. For example, the potency lens, if we go across a few pages here, is this one. It says the potency lens will double the amount of mana a mana burst can carry. However, the beam becomes slower, and after it starts to lose mana, it does so a lot faster. So basically, the mana bursts, the little like burst that it will send over to the runic altar, will carry more mana each time. So I figured we'd make a potency lens, and the way that we do that is by crafting up a normal mana lens with a rune of fire. We do have a rune of fire in our logistics pipe system, thanks to the fact that we made 3 of them in the last episode, and we just combine that up with a normal mana lens. So let's go ahead and request one of those. And then if we look up the recipe real quick for a mana lens, this thing is also fairly easy to make. It is 4 mana steel, 4 mana steel ingots, and then 1 mana glass. I'm fairly certain we should have some glass lying around here. Let me have a look. Glass. We do not. Wow, okay, let's go ahead and request. Actually, let's just go ahead and grab some sand directly out of here, because we have quite a bit of sand now in our system. So let's go ahead and take a bunch of those, craft that up into normal sand, and for now, just stick that into the furnace. And once we've got some glass, we can just bring that over to our mana pool here. Let's just go ahead and throw in a few of these. I'm going to make a few because we are going to need quite a bit more mana glass throughout the course of today's episode, and then we're going to need at least 5 of this mana steel. So let me go ahead and grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. Let's also grab our fire rune, and we should be pretty much good to go here. So let's go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. Craft 1 of them up into nuggets, and then craft all of that stuff up in our crafting station to get us a mana lens. Nice. So we can combine that up with a fire rune, and that gets us the mana lens of potency. Now, I was going to end it there, but then I looked a little bit deeper into the Lexicon Britannia, and it turns out that it says on this page, sometimes having a single mana lens in a spreader is just not enough. By combining 2 lenses with a slime ball in a crafting table, it is possible to unite them into one and keep the effects of both. And so I started looking at some of the other mana lenses that we could get. For example, the velocity lens, which will drastically increase the speed at which a mana burst travels. So I decided to make this one as well, because that kind of counteracts the idea that this one slows down the beam. So if we can combine both of them together, which by the way I don't know if we can do, I haven't tested this, it does say back here that not all of the lenses will combine and not all of them will work together. So I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work, that's fine. We can always put the velocity lens on one of our other mana spreaders, but in order to make a velocity lens we need a rune of air as well as a mana lens. Did we make a rune of air last time? I think we did, and we did. Let's take one of those. Let's go ahead and grab, again, 5 more iron. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, we only need 4 this time, don't we? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm being very particular about how much stuff I take out of my storage drawers here, because my inventory is getting extremely full, extremely fast here. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. Craft all of those up into another blank mana lens, like so. And then we'll craft that up with this air rune, and that should get us a velocity lens. Now, as for slime balls, we should also have some slime lying around in our system, and we do, because we made it a couple of episodes back. I say a couple, maybe like 10 or 15 episodes ago, in the Ex Nihilo barrels over there. So let's go ahead and grab that slime ball. Let's see if we can craft both of these together inside of the crafting station here, and we totally can. We now have a composite mana lens of velocity and potency. So if we take that, we should be able to, I think, put this directly onto our mana spreader over here, like so, and this should now be a more effective mana spreader than the one we had before. So let's see about putting all of these items on here. Let me quickly just throw away this pulverized nice iron there. That is a bit of a waste, but we're getting a load of it anyway. We don't really need to keep every single piece of iron dust. But let's see about putting all of these items onto here. So we want to put all 5 runes on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want to put the attuned stone on, and then the 4 blood runes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we go. That is now going to start working on producing us a runic altar. I have no idea how long that's going to take. Probably quite a bit of time, judging by what the Lexicon Britannia said, and judging by how fast it is going right now. It is going to take quite a while, looking at the little clock face there on the picture of the runic matrix, but that's fine because there is a bunch of stuff that we can be working on whilst we wait for that runic altar to craft. So the way that we use the runic matrix is in a multi-block crafting recipe to create an infusion altar. So if we look in the Thaumonomicon here and go across a few pages, it looks something like this. Ignoring the floor doesn't need to be made out of arcane stone. We need these 4 pillars, the runic matrix on the top, and then other pedestals around the outside. And basically the way that it works is you put certain items onto those pedestals, infuse them with certain types of V, and then they will craft together, much like they do in the runic altar, to create another item. So in order for this to work, we're going to need a few more pedestals, and we're also going to need a system that allows us to pull certain aspects out of certain items. For example, if we look at the recipe for the Silverwood one that we were trying to make at the end of last episode, in order to make this, in order to make the Silverwood rod, for instance, we need to combine all of the possible shards, as well as one balanced shard, together with all of these aspects, and all of these aspects have to come from water jars nearby. We can't use them directly from our wand, mostly because certain aspects, for example Procantio, cannot be stored in our wand, and so we have to store them externally in water jars. To do that, we have to set up a system that allows us to extract aspects from items and store them into the jars. And to do this, we need to start with an alchemical furnace. So I think we made one of these before as part of a crafting recipe for something else. Yeah, we used it when we were making the witch's oven here. Really simple to do. We just need 7 of these arcane stones, 1 normal furnace, and then 1 crucible, which is of course a cauldron right-clicked on with a Thorncraft wand. So let's head back up here real quick. Let's get some more iron cooking up in the metal farmer so we can craft up another crucible. I have got 3 in here already, but that's because I know we're going to have to craft another bucket later on in today's episode. We'll also go ahead and grab some of our cobblestone so we can make a furnace. Thankfully, we have this drawer up here, so we can just grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 compressed cobblestone right out of there, and then use that to directly craft up a normal furnace like so. As far as the arcane stone goes, I have been doing quite a bit of living rock farming between episodes, because I think we're going to need quite a bit of it going forward, because most of the items required in the crafting of the runic altar require some form of arcane stone as well. So let's quickly grab a little bit more stone. I think I should have some in this chest over here, and I totally do. Let's grab that, and let's look at making a little bit more arcane stone for today's episode. I did also fly around and find a few new aura nodes to fill up my gold-banded Greatwood wand that we made at the end of last episode, but let's go ahead and make a couple more of these in the arcane crafting station like so. I also hammered down a bunch more stone slabs to get a bunch more of these auto shards, but for now, let's go ahead and throw in our gold-banded wand. Let's take as many of these as we can craft. A stack should be more than enough, I think, for today's episode. That probably did use quite a bit of the aspects out of our wand, actually. Yeah, it looks like it's fine for now. So now we've got that, let's go and grab all of the iron plates to make the cauldron, which should all be pretty much done in here, and they are. We can craft those up like so. Throw that down pretty much anywhere in the world. Give it a quick right click, and there we go. We get a crucible. Nice. We can then combine all of those items together to get ourselves the alchemical furnace. Nice. So we'll take that, and that is the first part of breaking items down into their V form. I'm not quite sure how this looks if we put it down on its own, but let's for now say that we put this down right about here. If we look inside here, we can put certain items into the top section and then put fuel in the bottom, and what this will do is it will break that item down into the aspects that it's made up of. For example, if we look at the torches here that we have, we know that torches contain 1 lux, and so if we were to put a torch in there and put some fuel in the bottom, that would break down the torch and provide the block above it with 1 lux. Now, what block are we going to put above it? That is going to be the arcane alembic, which looks something like this. Now, to make this, we need 5 iron ingots, 1 bucket, 1 golden ingot, and 1 V filter, with a V filter being made with 2 golden ingots and 1 silverwood plank. Of course, to make silverwood, we again have to go back to our crucible upstairs. We need to make silverwood logs, and to do that, we need a birch log with 3 arbor, 1 procantio, and 1 order. How is this doing over here? That is about a third of the way there, so it shouldn't take all too long. So whilst we're waiting, let's go back up here. Let's grab ourselves 1 birch log. I know for a fact that we can find arbor in wood, so let's go ahead and take a few of those. As for order, let me go ahead and quickly look in the Thaumonomicon here under aspects of magic, and if we can find order, we should be able to find out what contains it. Lead. We can use lead for order. That is fine. Let's go ahead and take a few of those, and let's see if we can get ourselves some silverwood planks. So, I think we're going to need a bucket of water, because I'm fairly certain our crucible is empty after last episode, so let's fill this up like so. Once it starts to bubble, we can start to throw our items in. We need 3 arbor, 1 Picantio, and 1 order. It looks like it's ready. If we throw in the wood, that gets us 4 automatically, which is fantastic. Let's throw in 1 shard. That gets us the 1 Picantio, and it actually gets us the 1 order as well. So, if we throw in the birch wood, we get the silverwood. Nice. So we'll take that. I will go ahead and shift right click on this guy just to empty all that stuff out. Thankfully, no flux came out of there, which is nice. Now we can come back over to our arcane work table, stick in our wand, stick in our silverwood, and get ourselves some silverwood planks. Pretty cool. We'll take those, and then we'll craft them up with 2 golden ingots. That's going to get us the V filter, and then we can craft that up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 iron, as well as a bucket, and that should get us the arcane alembic. Now, let's go ahead and take those out of there, just so we can craft an extra bucket so we don't waste our only one. And now, if we go back over to our arcane crafting table, we should be able to throw all of this stuff together. So, V filter, like so. Let's stick in our wand, get that, and then bucket in the middle, iron all around the outside, like so, and then gold on the top right, and that gets us the arcane alembic. And this is going to go on top of the arcane furnace, and is going to be used to store all of the aspects that come out of there, and then distribute them to all of the water jars that we're going to have lined up along here. So this thing should be about halfway done right now, and it is. I want to keep checking up on this every now and again, because I'm not quite sure if anything bad's going to happen if we leave it going longer than it needs to. I don't think it does, but I'm going to keep checking on it nonetheless. So now we got these. We actually need to craft ourselves up some of the water jars that we're going to store all of these aspects in. So if we look up the recipe for water jars, the way that we craft these is with mana glass panes and any kind of normal slab with 1 aqua in the arcane work table. Mana glass panes being made up of 6 mana glass, just like you would for normal glass panes. So let's go ahead and grab some of the glass that we threw into our furnace a little earlier on in today's episode. That should all pretty much be done, and it is. Let's take that. Let's turn at least 6 of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, into mana glass. We do have a little bit of spare from earlier, but that's fine. We can craft all of that mana glass together like so, get ourselves some mana glass pins. We can then use our wood to make ourselves some wooden slabs like so. And then if we come back over to our arcane work table, we can craft all of those items together to get ourselves some water jars. Nice. We did only get 2 there, and we are going to need a lot more of those if we want to actually do some real crafts with the INFUSION crafting altar, because as you saw earlier from the silverwood rod recipe, that one in and of itself required about 6 different aspects in order to craft. Now, the hard part about this setup is getting the aspects out of the arcane alembic and into the water jars. This used to be a lot easier in Thaumcraft 3. All you had to do was get yourself some Essentia tubes and then pipe directly from the arcane alembic into some water jars, but unfortunately, in newer versions of Thaumcraft, that being Thaumcraft 4, I haven't actually played with Thaumcraft 5 yet, but at least for Thaumcraft 4, that doesn't actually work. If you tried to pipe directly from the arcane alembic over to these water jars, and then, for instance, put in an item that contained 2 different aspects, those 2 different aspects wouldn't make it into those 2 water jars. There will be conflictions. There is all kinds of stuff going on in terms of suction. I'm not gonna lie, I am not an expert in the way that Thaumcraft works with taking stuff out of these arcane alembics and into these water jars, but I do know a way that works that's going to allow us to pull items out of here into those water jars, and I'll put a link in the description to the Reddit post that I got this idea from if you want to look deeper into it and figure out how it actually works. But for now, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bunch of these Essentia buffers, as well as some arcane bellows, which are these guys over here. I haven't quite done the research for these yet by the looks of things, so what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go away. I'm going to make a bunch of these Essentia buffers, which are made using glass vials, which is just mana glass and clay, as well as some more of these Essentia tubes, which are made using quicksilver, which we get from sifting sand, as well as some iron, some glass, and some golden nuggets, as well as an Essentia valve, which is a normal pipe with a lever, and finally, a restricted Essentia valve, which is a normal tube, and some stone. I'm going to go away. I'm going to make probably about 10 of these, as well as 2 arcane bellows, and I'll be back in a second. And a little while later, the runic matrix is now done. Let's go ahead and throw down some living rock, give it a quick right click with our wand of the forest, and boom! Oh wow, I didn't realize we actually got all of those runes back. That is actually kind of fantastic, because I'm going to need these runes of air in a second, but I'm not quite finished making all of the Essentia pipes. I'll be back in a second. And a little while later, we now have everything that we need in order to make 7 of these Essentia buffers. I decided to go with 7 instead of the initial 10 that I was going to make because these restricted Essentia tubes are ridiculously expensive to make in terms of the Essentia that they require. They need 16 Terra for every single Essentia tube. And given that our wand can only hold 50 Terra at a time, this meant a lot of trips back and forth to all of my nearby aura nodes in order to keep filling up my wand with Terra in order to get the 7 that we do have. Our full set of armor here did obfuscate that a little bit, making it a little bit cheaper to craft, but I decided to go with 7 because I don't think that we're actually going to need more than 7 different water jars filled with aspects throughout the course of today's episode. So let's go ahead and take 7 of those. Thinking about it, I might need to make an 8th one at some point in today's episode, possibly, but I also went ahead and did the recipe for the Arcane Bellows. To unlock it, you have to first do the research for the Infernal Furnace, which is under the Artifice tab, for those of you who are wondering. But the way that we make the 2 bellows that we're going to need is by crafting up 2 great wood planks, 2 air shards, as well as 1 of these manatide bellows, which are an item from Britannia, made using living wood slabs, leather, and then a rune of air, which is why I was so excited when we got all of our runes back from the runic altar, because it means that we now do have 2 runes of air, and I don't have to go ahead and make another set of those. So let's go ahead and grab 3 of these so we can go and make all of the slabs. Actually, let's grab 2 more as well so we can actually make the bellow itself. Then let's come back over here. I don't think that we have any air shards lying around in the system. We don't, but what we can do is grab some sand from in here, and I should really tweak my system. Let me just like throw these into this trash can. I should really tweak my system so that we don't get all of these ores just kind of throwing themselves all over the place. It's actually be quite, you know, I'm just going to throw them on the floor. It's going to be quite difficult to get up to that trash can. So for now, let's go ahead and just grab a little bit of sand here. I didn't quite want 64. I wanted like 1, 2, 3, 4 or something. Let's put most of that back. But we can go ahead and craft that up into some sandstone. We can then craft that sandstone into some sandstone slabs and then hammer it down to get some air shards. And once we've got a nice amount of those, we can come back over to our logistics request table. I did request some leather. We can take that. And then we should be able to craft all of this stuff up together. We can use that to make ourselves some living wood slabs. We are going to need to get some more of those if we want to make 2 of these Arcane Bellows, which we do want to do. We can then combine up a rune of air with the leather like so. Let me quickly go and grab a couple more living wood here. Actually, we're just going to grab the remaining 3 that are here. And then we can finish this up in the Arcane work table, which we can use as a normal crafting table like so. So we'll take all of those. Not quite sure where that mana glass came from, but we can take all of these, craft them up in exactly the same way as we did before with the rune of air and the leather. Get our second manatide bellow, stick that in the middle, stick the air shards either side, and then the living wood on the top and the bottom, or the other way around. Is that all right? So it turns out the recipe is actually great wood planks either side of the manatide bellows here, not living wood planks. So I quickly grabbed another great wood log here. Let's just craft that up into 4 of these great wood planks. That's actually quite nice. It means we don't have to wait for some more living wood to be created. Then we can just put the air shards on the top and bottom, stick the manatide in the middle. That gets us the 2 arcane bellows, and we should now have everything we need to set up this system. So the way this is going to work, and again, I'm going to stress that I do not know how this works, just that it does work. I'm going to have to move these jars here. I'll put a link again in the description if you want to check it out. But basically, we're going to have a pipe come off the top here. We're going to have an Essentia buffer here, and then essentially what we're going to have is these buffers going all the way along like so, and then these jars connected up to the bottom of these buffers like this. We're then going to put down 1 of these arcane bellows right about there, and we're going to put another one down right about here, and we're going to make sure that all of the buffers here on the inside, you can shift right click to make sure that these are set to red. And if we set all of these to red, it should just work how I mentioned it working earlier in Thorncraft 3. We should just be able to put stuff into the alchemical furnace here. It should go up, through, and each one should just make its way into its own respective jar. So let me find an item that contains 2 aspects that we know. I'm fairly certain that we know both of the aspects in coal. If I grab this, it contains Potentia and it contains Ignis. So if I were to grab a little bit of coal, let me quickly switch out back to my jetpack again real quick, just to make flying a little bit easier whilst we aren't doing any arcane crafting. And so if we come back over here and we stick some coal into the bottom as fuel and then stick some coal into the top, it should break that coal down into Ignis and into Potentia. That should then go up into here and should be evenly distributed into this jar and also into this jar. Nice. And the way this system works, again, it will work work no matter how many I add. If I added another few jars onto the end here and then put a different item in there that wasn't coal, all of those aspects should find their way nice and easily over into those jars. It just makes the whole system of getting aspects into water jars much, much easier. And so now we have this. We can shift right click to get rid of these because we don't actually need both of those. We did need Ignis. I should probably have kept that because now we're going to start working towards getting the Silverwood 1 so we can get ourselves the node in a jar so that we can actually move some aura nodes and get them closer to us. So again, if we look at the Silverwood wand here, in order to make this, we need the Silverwood rod, and to make that, we need all of these shards, and we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different aspects in 7 different jars. So I'll go away in a second and make 7 more jars and try and get all those aspects in those jars, but before that, we should actually set up the infusion altar itself. So to do that, we're going to need a couple of things. We're going to need some arcane stone bricks, not arcane stone blocks, which is what we have right now, as well as some arcane pedestals to get this all up and running. So if we come back over here, we can craft 4 of these arcane stone blocks into 4 arcane stone bricks. Those are going to go at the very bottom of the altar. Again, if you look in the Thaumonomicon under infusion and go across here, you can see we need 4 arcane stone bricks at the bottom, 4 arcane stone blocks on top of that, 1 pedestal in the center, and then the runic matrix on top. So let's go ahead and craft all of these here into some pedestals. That's going to get us 14 pedestals. I'm going to make all of them because we're going to actually need quite a few pedestals to do some of the later crafts in the game. And for now, let's go ahead and stick this thing down right in the middle here. So I'm thinking 1, that's not the right place to put that whatsoever. I thought that was the arcane stone brick. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. On top of that, we want to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Luckily, we had 4 of those left. We're then going to put this guy in the middle, and then we want to put the runic matrix 1 above the pedestal. So not there, we want to put it right about there. And then if we look again at the Thaumonomicon, this process of actually crafting it up requires 25 of each aspect. And so what I did before the episode started is I made sure that my wooden wand, my old wand here, was full of all of its charge. So if we simply right-click, it didn't work. If we simply right-click, it should have worked. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what happened there, but for whatever reason, it didn't want to work with my iron-capped wooden wand. It could be that the 110% VCost or the 102% VCost was having an issue there, and actually, if I'd have taken off my jetpack and maybe switched it out for the robes, that might have worked. Like, if I switch that over, that becomes a 100% VCost, at which point that might have actually worked, but I tried it. I filled up my gold-banded one because I thought the Feed the Beast team might have switched it up a little bit to require 50 of each aspect instead of just 25. I don't think they did because it only cost me about 23 of each aspect from my gold-banded wand here, probably due to the discount that I get for having the gold-banded wand and all of my armor, but it is now here, and what we can do is we can set up these pedestals all around it like so. Now, optimally, I would like to have 3 on each side. As you can see right now, we do not quite have enough for 3 on each side. We are missing 1 pedestal for the 3 on each side to work. But for now, none of the crafts that we're going to do today require 12 of these pedestals in total. So what we need to do now is actually get all of these aspects here listed at the bottom into water jars nearby to the infusion altar. You can have these fairly close. This should be close enough for the altar to draw from. And we also need to get all of the items together that are required to actually do the craft. So all of these shards, as well as the Silverwood log. And so what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go away. I'm going to try and find items that contain all of these aspects. I'm going to make a bunch more water jars to put all of those aspects in, and I'm also going to put all those items into here, break them down, get them into the water jars, get all the items that we need in order to make the Silverwood rod. I'll be back in a second. And quite a long time later, I now have all of the shards that we need, as well as the Silverwood log to craft up the Silverwood rod, and I also have got all of the essentials that we need over in all of these water jars. Now, you'll notice that if we go into the recipe here for the Silverwood rod, that it says that the instability in the center there is moderate. That means that there is a fairly good chance that something will go wrong during this arcane infusion, and for that reason, I've made sure that we have extra of all of the aspects in these jars here. You can see we only need 10 of every single aspect. I've got at least 12, maybe even 13, I think. 12 I've got of Aqua, but I've got more than 12 of all of the rest of them. And so if anything does go wrong, what the altar will do is it will continue to pull aspects, and so it's good to have a couple of extra in there when you need it. And I've also gone ahead and got a couple of extra of all of these shards, just in case one falls off or gets destroyed during the actual infusion process. Now, before we do the infusion, there are actually things that we can do to lessen the instability surrounding the altar. If we look back in the Thaumonomicon here under infusion and go all the way to the end, it says, lastly, you can place a occult paraphernalia around the altar in symmetrical formations, things like candles, skulls, crystals, etc. So what I did is I went ahead and did the recipe under alchemy for magical tallow, and this unlocked the recipe for magical tallow, which is rotten flesh, into a crucible with some Picantio, and we can use that magical tallow with some mana-infused string to get some white tallow candles. Those are the candles that it's referring to when it says that you can put candles down to lessen the instability. And of course, we have our mob spawner that has a ton of mob heads that we can use to decrease the instability around the altar as well. But before we do that, let me quickly see if we can make a couple, possibly maybe 8 of these white tallow candles. So let me go around here. I should really get a water source closer to the crucible here. That one's not too far away, but due to the way I've set all this stuff up, it's a little bit tricky to get to. I should really just organize pretty much everything around here in general. It's all getting to be quite messy. But if we come over here, we can grab some of this rotten flesh. We're not going to need a stack, but we'll take it for now. I've got a bunch of excess fire shards because you get 4 of them for every nether brick that you break, whereas everything else you just get the 1. So I have a bunch of these. So if we were to go ahead and throw in one of those, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. We only got 2? Does it take? Oh, it takes 2 to do it. Okay, well, never mind. Then we'll go ahead and we'll empty that out like that. I don't want to waste too many of these because, of course, I want to have some excess so that if something does go wrong, we can always go ahead and replace stuff. Let me get rid of that cool stuff. So now we've got that. Let's quickly grab some string as well from our mob spawner, throw it into the mana pool. That's going to get us the mana string. I think it's mana string that we need in order to make those candles work. So let's take that and let's go ahead and put it into the mana pool. That's going to get us some of this mana string, which we can then combine up with our magical tallow like so. And that is not quite going to get us what we're after. And for some ridiculous reason, the crafting recipe for this does not work in the center or the end of the arcane crafting table, or it does in the end, it just doesn't work in the center. It works on either end. So you can either put it on the right-hand side where we had it just now, or on the left-hand side, but for some reason the middle doesn't work. Either way, that gets us 4 white candles. Let's also go ahead and grab like a stack of each of these skulls. I'm not quite sure if wither skeleton skulls work. I've never actually used wither skeleton skulls, because usually I don't have such a good supply of them so early on, but we'll try it anyway. It does say on the wiki that any skull will work, so it also emphasizes symmetry. If we look back in here and go to this tab again, it does say symmetrical. So we want to try and make sure that everything is as symmetrical as possible. I did go and also make another arcane pedestal, or another 2 arcane pedestals, just to fill this last slot over here. So let's see about making this as symmetrical as possible. We'll have zombie skulls either side like that. I'm going to make sure they're facing straight forward. I don't think it matters like that massively how symmetrical they are, but I guess having it symmetrical does help. We'll put candles in the center here because we only have 4 of those like this. And then we'll put creeper heads like there and there. And then we'll put them on the other side in the same places, kind of pointing in slightly there and there. We can put down the wither skeleton skulls, I guess, like right on the corner. That could kind of work. And by the way, the altar has quite a large range for detecting these items. I think the altar kind of centralized on the runic matrix. And then you can go a couple of blocks up and down. So we could put some of these skulls on the roof, and that would probably still work to decrease the instability. And I think you can go up to 12 blocks outwards in each direction. So you actually go quite far out in putting all these skulls down and actually get quite a lot of them to help with the instability. So I might actually go and just put down a couple more of these here, because I would really like it if this didn't become unstable. That would be absolutely fantastic. So again, make sure all those are straight. I did tilt these ones in again, so we'll do the same on this side. We'll do something like that. We'll throw down some more creeper heads. I don't want to use too many of the wither skeleton skull heads, because those ones are a little bit more valuable. We can use those to fight the wither if we so wish later on in the series, which I'm like almost certain we're going to end up doing. So I'll put down these final creeper skulls, and then we'll see about actually getting this thing up and running. So we got all those down. Now what we need to do is put all these shards on their respective pedestals. Again, symmetry is key, making sure that you spread these out nicely. Unfortunately for us, 7 is not an even number, so spreading these out isn't really all that much of an option. We could take a bit of a gap there, I guess, and do something like that. That's not particularly well spread out. I guess let's move this one over to here, and that looks a little bit more symmetrical. There's a 3 pedestal gap on that side, and then 2 over there. There's not much we can do about that, because like I said, 7's not an even number. It doesn't really work out all too well, but let's go ahead and throw some silverwood in the middle, and then if we right click, that should begin the crafting process. There we go. Okay, so you can see at the top all of the required essentials. It's going to pull all of those required essentials out from the nearby jars. We want to be ready on hand to replace any of these items that might come off. You'll see sparks come off the runic matrix there at the top if any instability occurs. Usually, it'll just zap some of the nearby pedestals and knock off one of your items. So you want to make sure you get that back on as fast as possible. You can see the zap there, but it didn't look like it did anything. let's just keep an eye on that. It's about to move on to Precantio, which is the last of the 7 aspects that it needs. And then once that's done, it's going to start pulling in all of the items from the pedestals. It looks like we've done a fairly good job at stabilizing this, or we've got, like, pretty lucky, one of the two. But it seems to be working quite nicely, pulling in all the items. And there we go. It is now done. We got ourselves a Silverwood rod. Nice. And that is how the arcane infusion process works. We put stuff in water jars, we put them around the pedestals, and then we infuse them with that essentia to get certain items. Pretty cool stuff. So, to finish up this crafting recipe here of the Thaumium Bossed Silverwood Wand, we need to get 2 charged Thaumium caps. To get that, we need normal inert Thaumium caps with 3 Sailor's Mundus. Sailor's Mundus is just balanced shards smelted, so I'm going to have to get 6 more of those balanced shards. Because we need 3 for each cap, we'll also have to make the inert Thaumium caps themselves, which are made using Thaumium Nuggets, which is made from Thaumium ingots, which are made in the Crucible with 4 Precantio and some Mana Steel. And so what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go away, I'm going to get some more shards, get some more Precantio for the Mana Steel to make some Thaumium. I'm going to craft some more balance shards so we can get enough Sailor's Mundus. I'm going to try and get all of the items, all of the Potentia, and all of the Aurum into the water jars over here. I'm not quite sure a good source of Aurum. This is one thing, one problem I did have, I think, in my hypovolemia world, is that I don't know a particularly good source for the aspect Aurum. If we look in the Thaumonomicon here, under basic information, I have yet to scan anything that contains Aurum, and the only thing that I know of that contains Aurum, that I think I know of that contains Aurum, are essence, and you get those essence by, the only way I know is by either killing wisps or breaking Aurum. And if I type in essence here, all of these essence here, all these ethereal essences, I believe if we scan those should contain some kind of Aurum, but the only way that I know how to get those is by breaking Aura nodes. I'm not really a huge fan of breaking Aura nodes because they're a little bit hard to come by, but I think what we're going to have to end up doing in order to get the Aurum required for the Thaumium caps is go ahead and break some of these Aura nodes. And when we break them, we get all of these ethereal essences, which if we then quickly just slash FTGOC, that's going to take me back to my base without flying up. If we grab our thermometer, which is in here, we can take that, we can throw these on the floor, and they should contain some Aurum, and they do. So that's what we're going to use as a source for our Aurum. For those who are wondering, that's how I'm going to get it. They all contain the same amount of Aurum, just with a different aspect depending on what type they are. Like this one here will just contain air and Aurum. We'd have to scan it again. So I'm going to go away. I'm going to get all the stuff we need to make the 2 energized Thaumium caps, and I'll be back in a second. Alright, so I think I now have everything that we need. So let's come back over to the arcane work table here. Let's stick in our iron wand, and I'm going to start by making the normal basic caps. They're going to look something like this. I'm going to make 3 of them, again, just to be on the safe side if something does go wrong with the instability. It's going to be nice to have an extra 1 or 2 lying around. I also made some extra Sailor's Mundus just in case we need that as well. We can come on down here, and another item, by the way, that we can craft in order for this to work, you may have noticed it in the Thaumonomicon, is shards. And you can make shards by using air shards or any other kind of shards to make a aspect-specific shard. For example, if I combine 6 of these up like so, that's going to get me an air crystal cluster. You can also combine a mixture of these shards up. If you put 1 of each shard in, you'll get a mixed crystal cluster. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make 4 of these and stick them on the roof above the altar. I don't know if it's going to do a whole lot of good comparative to what we have down here, but it is another moderate instability, and I would like it very much so if nothing went wrong. So let's just go ahead and do something like 1, 2, 3. I don't want to put it there. I want to put it there. Let's see if we can break that one. Oh, I broke into shards again. Okay, let me quickly go craft another one of those up. And 4. There we go. Nice. So, we now have all of the items that we need. We've got 16 Aurum in here. We only need 12 for the craft. Again, just some extra. And we've got 32 potential, although we only need 24 for both of the crafts here. So, let's go ahead and stick our Thaumium caps in the middle. Let's stick 3 Sailor's Mundus around the outside. Although this is another odd number, it does fit a lot nicer onto the altar there. You can see that's a little bit more evened out. So now, if we give it another right click, that should start to again pull all of the aspects from the jars nearby. Hopefully nothing goes wrong. I can only really afford for something to go wrong twice because I have 1 extra Sailor's Mundus and 1 extra shard from the center there. But it looks like everything is gonna be just fine. And it was cool stuff. We will then take this. That is our 1 charged Thaumium cap. We're then going to do the exact same thing with the second one here. And it worked perfectly. Nice. Nothing at all went wrong. Brilliant. So now that we've got our 2 charged thaumium caps and our silverwood rod, we can take all of this stuff up to our arcane crafting table. I am going to have to quickly switch out to my robes here because I'm going to need all of the V discount that I can get to actually craft this thing, because if we go boom, boom, and boom, it requires 54 of each aspect. If I put my wand in, it now requires 48.6 of each aspect, which I have. I went ahead and filled up my gold banded wand with as much aspect as it could hold, and so we now have ourselves a thaumium embossed silverwood wand, which can hold up to 100 of every single aspect, allowing us to do stuff like a node in a jar. So, the final thing that we're going to do in today's episode is we're going to create a node in a jar. Now, I did accidentally throw my Thaumonomicon into the crucible over here, so let me quickly just grab another one of those. Okay, so now that I've got myself a replacement Thaumonomicon, we can look back in here again, go down to node in a jar, which is over here, and we can see that it is just a bunch of glass blocks surrounding an aura node with some slabs on the top, with 70 of each aspect in my wand. And so what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go away, I'm going to find the aura node that I want to bring back, I'm going to surround it in glass, stick the slabs on the top, get my wand full of all the V required, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so after spending way too much time looking out for aura nodes, I did find a ton of them, by the way. All of those little blocks, I don't know if you can quite see them out in the distance, are all aura nodes, and I found a ton more. I probably know the existence of about 30 aura nodes right now. A lot more of them are kind of over in that direction over there, but I have found one that I like, and I've got my wand. If I take my jetpack off here, my wand is now almost full. We're missing a little bit of Ignis. I actually had to go to the nether to find an aura node that had Ignis in it, because we're in an extreme hills biome, or a forest biome now. Spawn is kind of over there. It's close to an extreme hills biome, and there are no Ignis nodes around. There are no Ignis in any of the nodes. It's always just a ton of terror. But I found one after. If I right-click, it turns into a jar, which I believe we can just then collect. I did build this little platform here a little bit haphazardly. It's just the materials I had on me. But we now have a node in a jar. It contains air, aqua, and terra. And so now, if we go back to my base, which is over here, we can put this down wherever we like. So for now, I think I'll put it down on this lovely grass platform. Eventually, we'll get a better place for these. And also, be wary about putting too many of these together. I don't know if I have to, like... There we go, shift right click with the wand, and boom! We now have our very own aura node, not the best aura node in the world, but we can pull from it and we don't have to fly around in order to get to it, and we can use that same technique to bring a bunch more aura nodes over to the island. Like I said, it's a little bit iffy if you put too many of them together without node stabilization, which we'll get into a little bit later on. You can see here, there is a node stabilizer. You do want to stabilize your nodes, otherwise they'll start fighting with each other and doing all kinds of stuff like that. But for now, guys, I'm going to end this episode of Feed the Beast Infinity Evolved Skyblock there. Next time, we'll come back. We do now have a full tank worth of UU matter, so we'll start working on replicating some iridium and possibly start working on a little bit of applied energistics. But for now, thanks for watching. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to like. It really does help out a lot. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys next time.